A calamity has befallen the world, a disaster beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Various kinds of monstrous creatures and beasts erupted and caused unparalleled chaos on Earth. Humans had to face the overwhelming presence of these unknown beings. After much consideration, the UN had to make firm decisions on not letting this unknown civilization take control. And so, when this unknown civilization threatened them to surrender their people if they wanted to survive, the UN firmly rejected the demands. In particular, the United States said that the monsters are treating humans as their food, so they must never yield to their demands. Humanity called the mysterious beings that suddenly appeared calamities. Faced with an overwhelming calamity, humanity even turned to nuclear weapons usage. However, as soon as they were charged at the calamity, they regarded the weapons as mere fireworks. Instead, they danced and twirled, laying waste to the city around them. The nuclear weapons were no match for these monstrous calamities. Elder, adult, or child, nothing mattered to them. Every glimmer of hope for humanity was snuffed out. The scene shifts to a child and its father trying to seek shelter from a calamity. The father knew they had little to no hope of survival, but he mustered enough courage to survive. However, the calamity soon discovers them. And just when all that awaited was death, they appeared, the 13 constellations. Humanity praised the 12 humans blessed by the zodiac saints. They each wielded the power bestowed upon them by their chosen zodiacs. But then the 13th human, awakened without any divine blessing, emerged. His name is Legion. To hunt down the crimson eyes that lie at the heart of the calamity, the 13 humans gathered at the Tower of Demons. Legion and the other saints set out to assault the Tower of Demons. But later, when they all came out and the paparazzi surrounded them, they were surprised to see that only 12 of them returned. They all were curious to know what happened to the hero of Korea, Legion. One of the 12 saints addressed everyone. He took his sweet time and hesitatingly revealed that Legion chose death for the sake of humanity. He ended the speech full of tears. What a performance, indeed. While it was true that Legion risked his life, it wasn't a sacrifice. The truth was that they barely managed to take the Crimson Eyes down. He didn't give up without putting up a fight. Legion had lost an arm and was on the brink of death as he cursed the other saints for abandoning him without a second thought. Still, he barely managed to defeat the Crimson Eyes. Or so he thought. He suddenly gets stabbed in the back with a weapon. It was so sudden and lethal that he did not have the time to process it. He falls off from a great height while processing how things turned out this way. In the end, everything turned dark. Apparently one of the scumbags he thought he had defeated stabbed him in the back and trapped him in the worst possible trap, one he can never escape. They even made sure that he stayed busy by sending some strong friends to join him. Legion takes one look at the creature and laughs. He scoffs, mumbling about how his left arm is gone and his right arm is messed up. He guesses it would be easier to just die here. He falls to the ground. However, he takes one look at his destroyed weapon and becomes determined. He grabs the dagger with his mouth and picks up a weapon in his right arm. It seems he was not ready to give up that easily. He cannot die, not today, that's what he thinks. And so, as the calamity charges at him, he leaps into the air lightly. He points his weapon at the calamities, swearing to stay alive until he makes those backstabbers pay. Before we move on, let's go back a little. The story begins with our protagonist, Legion, having the time of his life eating chicken legs. That is, of course, until he is told that he will die tomorrow. Hugo Otters, one of the 12 saints, looks at him with a serious expression on his face as he reveals this to Legion. Legion laughs and asks why he is dying to kill him. He calls Hugo Take Su and jokes that it might be because he eats 2 chicken legs every time. Hugo gets annoyed by the nickname. Legion assures him that he will not die, revealing that he has killed more calamities than all 12 of the saints put together. Hearing this, Hugo turns awfully quiet. The Tower of Demons is where the worst calamity that will destroy humanity resides. It all began on the last day of the 20th century. The calamity suddenly appeared and cornered humanity with their overwhelming power. At the very moment when chaos and fear engulfed humanity, the 12 beings calling themselves divine gods appeared. They claimed to grant humanity the power to overcome these calamities, and they chose 12 awakened ones to receive that power. But something unexpected occurred. Devoid of any divine blessing, a 13th awakened one emerged. Moreover, that awakened one was so powerful and so remarkable that it utterly eclipsed the 12 saints. And that 13th awakened one is none other than our protagonist, the great Jin. On one of the usual missions, Hugo thanks Jin for helping them to conquer the Tower of Demons once again. Amusingly, in return, Jin only wanted a 5-year supply of free fried chicken. Hugo sighed and questioned if he does not get tired of fried chicken. He always used to remind Jin that his name isn't Tiksu, but Jin insisted that it just does not roll off the tongue. The other Sans were ecstatic that they will get a huge reward if they defeat the Crimson Eye. Jin, however, reveals that the Crimson Eyes are going to leave a bunch of countries on the edge of bankruptcy for a while. One of the scenes involves love, and he questions if he does not want some serious money to make a deal with them to patch up that face of his. Jin doesn't say anything in return. He knows that these people call themselves saints, but they're just thugs trying to line their own pockets. The saints turn back and mock him for not rushing to the scene the second day they call, as they need enough victims before the reward goes up. Jin was only putting up with them for the sake of defeating Crimson Eye. Once he is done with the calamity, he is done with them. The saints soon make their way to the lair of the boss of the Tower of Demons, Crimson Eye. The saints looked at the creature with wide eyes, surprised by how big it was. Jin frowns, believing that just looking at it strikes such intimidation. Crimson Eye roars as it notices the saints, and the whole place begins to rumble. Soon enough, the ground begins to collapse. The impact was so sudden that the saints did not have time to react quickly, and they were all pulled towards it. As the ground begins to crumble, striking blinding light pours out, surrounding the entirety of the demon tower. All that was left was a huge hole in the ground, sizzling with burning fire. Seeing the look of surprise and fear on the saints' faces makes Crimson Eye grin amusingly. Realizing that they are not enough, the saints began to flee for their lives. Jin watches them leave in disappointment, calling them idiots. However, he does not retaliate like them and instead stands his ground. He tightens his grip on his weapon, deciding that in the end, the one who defeats the Crimson Eye will be him. Jin takes a leap for it and charges at the huge calamity. However, in the end, he got stabbed and fell into a trap. Oops! As everything became dark, he wondered how much time had passed now and whether time was flowing differently inside the tower. But he did not have much time to think about it, as he endlessly and infinitely spent his time slicing the calamities with his weapon. He knew he must slice in order to live on. It is because this place is a special trap where calamities are endlessly summoned. And it did live up to its name, as the man was surrounded by an infinite number of calamities charging at him continuously, not giving him the time to take a break. Jin believes that it will take much more for him to die. His eyes were filled with vigor and the determination to survive and rip apart those backstabbers who dared to cross him. Time passed, and before he knew it, 20 years had passed by. Yes, 20 years of Jin fighting the infinite amount of calamities that headed his way each second of each day for 20 years. That is, until only one calamity was left. Jin made his way first to the last of the calamities. The calamity was shivering and trembling in fear, hoping for someone to save it. However, Jin drops it underneath its foot, telling it to yell all at once. He was soon done crushing the calamity towards death. Jin sighs in relief. He looks in the distance, wondering if it is really over. 20 years had passed by, and surely he had changed a lot. All of a sudden, the place begins to shake, causing huge rocks to fall down. Jin believes he can finally get out. But he couldn't even complete the sentence when suddenly a huge rock came tumbling down on him, crushing him. Meanwhile, outside the demon tower, the world had been completely destroyed. The scene shifts to some people running from high-level calamities. The two were surrounded by them and had nowhere left. One of the boys thinks that if only Jin had come back from the Tower of Demons, these calamities would have had no chance. It was as if the heavens had listened to his request that the demon tower that was near them soon begin to open. They look at it in shock. Soon, blinding light leaps out. It is surrounded by a huge explosion, causing them to get stuck under the rubble. As soon as they opened their eyes, they were in a trance. It is because they see a person in the collapsed tower. The person looked bitter to the core as he came from the rubble tower, wondering how dare they stab him in the back and trap him. He swears to end them all. The two guys watched and smacked the hell out of the calamities that were chasing them earlier. They found his strength unbelievable, as they knew that even high-ranking awakened ones have a hard time dealing with orange-rank calamities. But this man is crushing them like insects. Jin continued killing the calamities until he was surrounded by a whole tower of them. He then soon spots the two guys and disappears. Turns out he was making his way towards them. His sudden appearance causes the two guys to shriek like little girls. They're backing away, questioning why he is suddenly attacking them. Jin realizes they are humans and looks around to see that none of the calamities were left. One of the guys, Jimin, tells the others that the person came out of the tower, which is quite some breaking news. The other guy finds it unbelievable, reminding him that the tower is the one place from which no one comes out alive. He guesses he must have been nearby when the tower collapsed. All of a sudden, everything turns awfully quiet as they notice a huge calamity approaching them. The two guys were extremely frightened out of their wits as they recognized the calamity as the alpha wolf. While they decide to run, Jin looks at them and faintly smiles. The calamity's eyes were glowing red like those of a predator. He roars out blinding light, and so the guys could not see properly. The light came out in waves surrounding the entirety of the area. As soon as it settled down, the guys opened their eyes, wondering if they're still alive. The first thing that we see is the man from before, standing straight and confident. Their eyes widened as they comprehended that this man just saved their lives. Jin, on the other hand, was annoyed, calling the calamity a stupid mutt. He then leaps into the air and lands a punch towards the calamity, ordering it to sit down as if it were a little puppy. The sheer force of his attack was enough to defeat the monster. The two guys were dumbfounded as they watched the hilarious scene unfold. The alpha wolf had been knocked out in mere seconds. Jin wonders if it is really over this time. He then turns to the two guys who were trembling in fear. However, Jin breaks into a smile, telling them to buy him something to eat. He also casually suggests that he needs clothes as well, while the two remain frozen in their tracks. They soon retire to a 24-hour restaurant. The guys watched in shock as the food bill kept piling up. The guys couldn't believe that the man just ate 120 servings all by himself. But Jin seems to have no intention to stop. Instead, he says that he did not go all out for their sake, all while shamefully burping and his tummy sticking out. Seeing them furious, he reminds them that they said they would buy him anything as payment for their life. One of the guys loses it when Jin suggests adding some ramen for dessert. Jimin tries to lighten the mood and asks the man what he does for a living and what he was doing near the tower. Jin reveals he was inside the tower, and when he came out, he was there. He then asks Jimin who he is. He points out that though Jimin looks like an ordinary person, he senses magic power coming from him. While Jimin looked proud, the other guy revealed he is a sacred disciple. He questions Jin if he is also not a sacred disciple awakened by the grace of the divine gods. Jin curses the divine gods, wondering why he would serve those comebacks. But he halts as he suddenly notices his own reflection in the spoon. As soon as he sees his face, a sudden realization dawns upon him and his demeanor darkens. He begins to panic and instantly asks for a mirror. He couldn't believe what he was seeing in the mirror, and he even took his shirt off to examine if his body was the same as well. He was shocked to see that his body had completely healed. The scars were difficult to heal because of the drawbacks of his abilities, plus his left arm had been amputated as well. As he examines his hand, he notices a weird mark on it. It soon begins to glisten, and the snake-like pattern begins to move. Jin instantly begins to groan in pain as it hurts his entire body. All of a sudden, a message window pops up, revealing that Jin has experienced death. He has accomplished an impossible achievement, and the existing abilities will be passed down to the new body. All achievements in the tower are converted into experience points, and he has created a divine skill. His unique skills and traits have been involved, so now he can utilize the power of this serpent sovereign. Jin closes his eyes and focuses. When he reopens them, he finds himself transported completely elsewhere, and he is face to face with the snake sovereign. He reaches out for it slowly, and as soon as it touches his skin, light begins to pour out. After a few seconds, he returns to reality. He didn't have time to process it and wonders what the hell is going on. The two guys from earlier were looking at him in worry and asked if he was okay. Jin questions if they saw a really huge snake, but they only remained speechless. Jimin denies it and says that Jin suddenly took off his clothes and ran to the mirror. He then grabbed his wrist and started screaming. Jin realizes that no one else saw it, and he stares at the mark on his hand. It begins to glisten once again, revealing that he has become the owner of Ophiuchus. More and more windows began to pop up, revealing all his achievements. He has also achieved ultra regeneration that heals damaged bodies. Since he has been bestowed with a new body, the penalty is that there is a 50% reduction in his physical ability. Jin was confused. He had never heard of other saints seeing things like this, plus he cannot feel the presence of any divine gods. However, he realizes it is not bad that his body has recovered. Now what he has to do is hunt. From those saintly backstabbers who ran away, he also has to get to the scumbag who stabbed him in the back. He already feels thrilled at the thought of killing them all. The scene shifts to the collapsed demon tower. The media knew that the whole world would be in an uproar soon because the Tower of Demons had seemed like an impregnable fortress, but it has now collapsed. One of the men pointed out how the Tower of Demons is a symbolic place related to Lai Jin and wondered if it could be the work of his hidden followers. Or was it done by other secret disciples who hated Jin? One of the media reporters tells them all to look at the calamities. Even high-ranked sacred disciples struggled to hunt them, and so who would dare to defeat these calamities and destroy the Tower of Demons? They began to consider the possibility of the 13th saint being alive and having returned. However, they knew all they could do was wait and see. The scene shifts to the media reporters trying to interview Saint of Aries, Yang Wei. The question is his thoughts about the collapsed tower, but to everyone's surprise, he announces that he will make no comments and leaves. Later in the car, he smashes his glasses in rage. He was irritated that all everyone was asking him about was Li Jin. He didn't believe the possibility of the man being alive for 20 years in that tower. It was absolutely impossible, as there must have been tens of thousands of magical beasts, all black rank. Getting out only with the crimson eyes was already miraculous enough, so he couldn't believe anyone would survive there. Plus, Jin's body was badly damaged as a side effect of his power, and unlike the 12 saints, he had no blessing of the divine gods. However, Yang Wei considers the possibility of the man coming back alive. He knows everything will be over. On the other hand, Li Jin stares at a phone screen and grins, remarking that he will have to start with him first. The scene shifts to a plane landing. Out came the Sagittarius Saint, Hugo Otters. He's greeted by the protocol and he asks them where the president is. The protocol reveals the president is expected at the official residence and that they have prepared a car for him. They marveled at the man's presence. As Hugo makes his way towards the president, he finds his phone buzzing with notifications. Hugo believes it is the reporters again, as the rumors of Jin still being alive were spreading. He was frustrated, stating that it has been 20 years already, and he silenced his phone. He remembers 20 years back when he reminded Jin that he will die tomorrow on the mission. During the Tower of Demons raid, he was fighting the calamities outside the tower at Li Jin's request. He was hoping his prediction was wrong and that Jin would survive. But to his shock, he sees that the saints who went with Jin had abandoned him and came back with only the Crimson Eye's head. Then, having received recognition for their achievement, the 12 saints, including Hugo, were hailed as heroes and gained immense power. But Hugo couldn't accept Jin's death and kept insisting they go find him. But he was told by Cancer Saint, Jean Louis, that it isn't possible due to the danger. Plus, he was told by Jean Louis that the very thought of Jin being alive is pure nonsense. He told Hugo to go search for him alone if he wants. He turns bitter as he remembers the old memories. He knew that Jin must not be alive as it's impossible despite his strength. Besides, it is too late now. Hugo is cut off from his thoughts as the car screen suddenly lights up, revealing that it is a call from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister tells him about the news of the Tower of Demons collapsing. Hugo sighs as he is fed up of hearing this news over and over again. He apologizes and says he will have to decline if he is asking him to find Jin. He asserts that the 13th Saint died in the Tower of Demons and that they and the Tower of Demons incident must have been the work of his followers. However, the Prime Minister interrupted him, saying that is not it. Apparently, a source from the Korean government says that line just rang, Li Jin's direct line. Hugo remains dazzled to hear this. His heart beats loudly against his chest, and he begins to bang on the driver's back seat. Wondering if it is for real, he orders the driver to stop the car. He becomes flustered as he rushes for his phone that he had previously silenced. He wonders if the calls he had been getting since a moment ago were from that line. He checks his phone and sees that he has 30 missed calls and 1 voice message. He instantly reaches for the voice message. He soon hears a familiar voice, the only person who calls him Tik-Su. Jin revealed that he will find Hugo and kill him. He wished him good luck and ended the voice message. Hugo's face turns pale, still comprehending the fact that it is Jin. He orders the driver to turn the car around as they have to go back to the airport. In the meanwhile, Jin smirks as he sees Hugo ignoring his calls. He was still eating while at the restaurant with the other 2 guys. He marvels at the new invention that is a smartphone. He remarks that it is fascinating indeed. He rambles about how he went to the tower in 2005 and it is 2025 right now. Jimin realizes that it is his first time using a smartphone and elaborates that he can use it to go online and read the news. Jin then asks if he can search up Legion. Jimin affirms, revealing that it is the most trending topic in the news right now. Jin scrolls through the news, but in the comments he sees many trolls calling him a scrub compared to the other 12 saints. This makes him furious, and he ends up breaking the guy's phone. He throws profanities at the saints for running away while he was the one who caught the crimson eye. However, he calms himself down as he had expected this would happen. He sees exclusive news about his will released at his death. He remembers vividly that if he were to die, all of his assets were to be donated to orphanages and scholarship foundations. He smiles, wondering if it has been done properly. But to his shock, according to the news, his will stated that his assets will be transferred to the 12 saints to aid them in saving humanity, along with the sacred relics. This was his final straw, and he ends up crushing the smartphone in his hands. He continues threatening to cut off the saints' heads, tearing them apart limb from limb, divine gods and all. Jimin, meanwhile, cries in the corner about his smartphone. Jin frowns deeply. Even if he wanted to show he is back, he looks nothing like he did 20 years ago, and nobody will believe it is him. They will just think he is crazy. He decides to just lay low for a while until he finishes off the saints one by one. All of a sudden, the system window pops up, cautioning him that someone is watching him. He finds the energy familiar, and he excuses himself to get some fresh air. He walks out of the restaurant and is soon surrounded by divine minions. Divine minions are divine beings used by divine gods. Jin recognizes these divine minions to be lackeys of the Ares saint. According to the system, the divine minions are forming a barrier corresponding to Ares, and other divine influences are weakening. Jin becomes infuriated. However, he was soon interrupted as a couple walked past, talking about how everyone is talking about Jin. They expressed their irritation, saying that they do not get why anyone cares about someone who is washed up. Jimin's eyes widen as he recognizes from their badges that these people are the Gemini constellation. He cautions Jin to come in quickly, or it would be troublesome if he gets into a fight with those people. But Jin ignores him and remains standing. The man towers above him and asks what he is staring at, telling him to get lost. He even blows out cigar smoke onto Jiyeon's face. Jin's demeanor darkens, but he remains quiet. The man tells him to hit him if he is pissed off. The woman suggests that they go, or the boy might write his friends. They call him chicken and get going. Jimin praises him for handling it well, revealing that those people are a class of higher Geminis. However, the peace doesn't last long as Jin shouts at them, calling them cockroaches. Both of them turn back and looked at him with a cold demeanor. They confirm if he is talking about them. Jin flexes his muscles and, in a sing-song voice, calls them cockroaches once again. Furious, the guy makes his way to Jin, daring him to say it again. He begins to insult Jin as a mere regular but is interrupted with Jin's sudden flick. But it wasn't just a flick. That flick results in the guy flying back. He ends up crashing down, shocking the others. The woman accompanying the guy turns nervous. Jin then calls her out, asking if she really thinks he wouldn't notice what she is doing behind him. The woman conjures up mana, but before she could do anything, she goes flying back as well thanks to Jin. Jin scoffs, commenting that they don't even amount to much. The other two call out Jin for using his abilities in the middle of the street. Jin says they would have been dead had he used his abilities. The two men's mouths gape open as they realize Jin made a mess of A-rank disciples with only his finger. Jin turns his attention to the man and the pendant he wore. He snatches it and recognizes it as a divine artifact. But he couldn't understand why these scumbags have them, as only saints should possess them. Jimin becomes surprised to see his lack of knowledge. He then reveals that humanity almost went extinct from the calamity several decades ago. They were only able to survive thanks to the divine gods and the saints that they chose. Okay, but since this entire world cannot be protected by just 12 people, the saints gathered people to follow them and made divine cadres. The people who have awakened by being granted power from the saints are called disciples, and they are ranked proportionally to their power. The saints chosen by the divine gods are the heads, and the 10 stars can be considered saint candidates. The strongest disciples that command the other disciples are called divine cadre captains, and the disciples come then. The power of the divine gods comes from the disciples' faith, so they have all sorts of competitions to get people into their divine cadres. Selected disciples are then given gifts from the divine gods. Jin processes all this information that happened during the 20 years he was aware. Jimin becomes surprised and soon points towards the creatures. According to the system, the households of wealth and greed under Ares are enjoying this situation. They urge him to finish off the man and woman, desiring to see the spilling of blood, saying they will give him a useful gift if he kills the two. One of the men was shocked to see that Jin has caught the attention of the household gods. He exclaims that they are like the shadow of the divine gods. Opposing them is the same as opposing the divine gods. He tells Jin to hurry up and do as they want, but Jin laughs. He has been wondering why Yang's goons were in a place like this. He has now come to realize they were trying to fill their stomachs like that scumbag. He makes his way forth in fury, shouting that the 80 cents has not changed at all. Using his powers, he drives away the household guards. He didn't smile at their audacity to stand up to him. The other two were astonished to see that the household guards of Ares ran away along with the barrier disappearing. Jimin was certain by now that this man is definitely not an ordinary person. Jin confirms with Jimin if the thug is a disciple of Gemini. Jimin affirms, disclosing that they are the divine cadre that has the most influence in this country and an elite force that consists of several influential figures. Jin deduces that they must have tons of money. He then grins, pointing out that everything the thug is wearing is brand-name clothing. He then begins to sing while looting the guy of his clothes. The scene shifts to the guys leading Jin with them to their dwellings. Jimin points toward the apartment he lives in, while the other guy lives in the next neighborhood. Jimin thanks Jin once again for saving their lives and taking them home. But it turns out Jin had no intention to leave yet. Instead, he planned to mooch off him in his house. After a long shower and a well-deserved haircut, Jin smiles as he sees himself in the mirror. Jimin beams at his glow-up, saying he looks so cool now. Jin was pretty happy. Back in the day, every single strand of hair was precious to him since he kept losing hair as a side effect of his abilities. He is ecstatic that he gets to style his hair like this. He frowns as he spots a mosquito buzzing around and asks Jimin why there is a calamity in his house. He quickly crushes it in his hands, earning a double thumbs up from Jimin. Jimin continues killing the calamities, complaining about how they keep coming to him. Jimin guesses he is giving off a scent that calamities like. Jin brushes it off as nonsense. He says that normally this means that something in this house is attracting them. He then stares at the evil artifact, saying that it is because of them calamities are coming here. Jimin reveals he received these items directly from the Gemini scent. Even though they are not his, they are things that have been blessed by the seed, but he is soon frozen in his tracks from the shock of the guy crushing the evil artifacts. Jin, it is these types of masks that the saint gave him as a divine artifact that monitors its buyer. As for the musical box, it steals personal information, and the watch is something that attracts calamities. He curses the saint scumbags for not only stealing his money, but also selling things like evil artifacts to people and feeding off others. He was getting angry just from the thought of it, and he ordered Jimin to throw them all away. While they were busy fighting, a red-haired man entered the apartment. He frowns as he looks at Jin and asks who he is. Jin remains confused as well while Jimin turns nervous to see him. Sungyi's demeanor darkens as he reveals he is the owner of this house. And so, this is followed by an awkward silence. Meanwhile, in Yang Wei's residence, he learns of the Korean household gods disappearing. This has caused his Korean branch to be in a panic right now. Yang wonders who on earth would do something like that. Household guards are the direct subordinates of the divine guards. No awakened would dare to chase them out, though. He orders for the other saints to be contacted and asked for clues, but his subordinate reveals that the Sagittarius Saint Hugo is still uncontactable, as always. Yang tells him not to bother with Hugo, as he is probably in England as a mercenary right now. The subordinate reveals that he was told shortly after touching down in England, he left straight away. This catches Yang's attention and he asks, where did he go? He becomes shocked when the subordinate reveals his destination is Korea. Yang remembers how Hugo was Jin's best friend. He wonders if the reason why he is making moves must be due to the rumors of the man's survival. This makes him wonder if he really came back alive. He knew that his. Troublesome and angry, he orders his subordinate to do a proper investigation on it. The subordinate further reveals that in the place where the household guards disappeared, a disciple of Gemini was found to have fainted. He was left with only his underwear and was lying naked on the streets. Based on witnesses, he quarreled with the handsome man. From this, Yang deduces that it is not Lee Jin, as his face is totally messed up. In any case, the recent situation is not good. The household gods that are in Korea have disappeared for unknown reasons, and to make things worse, they also failed in their conquest of the Spider Queen. This goes on. He knows his position will be threatened. He orders his subordinate to prepare his private jet, as he will exactly find out what is happening in Korea by himself with his own eyes. The scene shifts to the Gemini disciple that Jin had beaten. His grandfather was furious and wondered who dared turn his grandson into this. The Gemini disciple Min Sung-hoon tells the chairman to not worry about what happened this time around. He says this is why the Gemini divine cadre dispatched him. In the meanwhile, Jimin tells Sungyi about his day and encounter with Lee Jin. He was furious and refused to believe that this strange guy beat an A-rank disciple and killed all the calamities with his bare hands. He points out that he broke all the divine artifacts in the house. Jin was still busy examining the fake artifacts and reminded them that they were all fake. Sungyi asks what divine cadre he is in. Jin smirks and asks if he needs to be in one. Sungyi tries to keep his cool and questions which divine god he follows, but the man reveals he follows himself and not those 12 morons. Sungyi continues to resist breaking down and asks about his awakened class. However, when the man reveals his name to be Lee Jin, Sungyi is on the brink of losing it. He calmly points out how the guide trespassed into their house, broke all their divine artifacts, and dared to pretend to be Lee Jin. Jimin tries to calm him down, reminding him that they are in the house. Jin casually watches the scene unfold as the system cautions him that the mana of the disciple of Gemini is exploding. He was marveled by the man's power, pointing out that he's going to burn his house down at this rate. Suddenly, the system activates a skill called Gaze of a God. He could now read the guy's profile. Sungyi was a disciple of Gemini with an air rank. Jin smiles, impressed to see that he is already using a high-ranked summoner at such a young age. It is no wonder his trait isn't genius for nothing. Jimin warns Jin to run away as his roommate is a ranked disciple of Gemini. Plus, he is also a severe Lee Jin fanatic. To Sungyi's shock, Lee Jin creeps up on him from behind and mockingly says he will piss himself at night if he plays with fire so much. Before Sungyi has time to react, Jin throws him down. He then assures Jimin the guy isn't dead. Jimin, however, was still worried seeing Sungyi's state. Yawning, Jin retreats for the night. However, as soon as he makes his way to Sungyi's room, he is surrounded by a lot of action figures of himself. He was dumbfounded, to say the least. Upon questioning, Jimin reminds him Sungyi is a Lee Jin fanatic. Sungyi, still out of breath, warns him not to go in that room as it is filled with his fangirl collection he values more than his life. He begins to scream as the annoying guy begins to take their heads off. He begins to cry like a heartbroken girl as Jinner refuses to stop. The scene shifts to Hugo sitting at a coffee shop listening to the news. According to the news yesterday afternoon, 2 Gemini disciples were humiliated by a suspicious individual. According to witnesses, the suspect extorted all of the victims' belongings. Hugo sighs, certain it is Jin. He wonders what this scumbag is doing. This is the first thing he had to hear after coming to Korea. Soon, a waitress appears to take his order. Hugo lashes out and becomes alert, telling Yang Wei to cut the crap and get out. The waitress's eyes glow red and she laughs. Yang greets Hugo. He guesses Hugo must have thought about Jin as well since he is also in Korea. He says it will be in his best interest if he tells him what he knows. Hugo was irritated and reminded him that this is why he hates him. He throws profanities at him, saying that he is a pervert who possesses other people's bodies. Soon, the waitress returns to her real self, all confused and overwhelmed. Hugo was irritated to see Yang pulling trivial tricks like this, as usual. He is determined to find Jin before anyone else and wonders where the hell he is. On the other hand, Jimin and Seungyi have a conversation about whether the stranger is really Lee Jin. Seungyi refuses to believe it, saying he looks completely different. Annoyed, he reminds Jimin that Jin is a hero who saved humanity, not a thug like that guy. Jimin points out how he saw the guy come out of the demon tower for sure, and he is super strong too. However, Seungyi refuses to hear otherwise. He says he is certain, especially since his father from the Sagittarius group told him. They are soon about to make their way to the grocery counter when they hear someone yelling, calling someone a thief. Suddenly, someone rushes past them with immense speed. Jimin guesses it must be a Scorpio disciple, while Seungyi couldn't believe the guy's using his abilities to steal. At this rate, all the items in the store and people's wallets are going to be emptied. Meanwhile, the thief was certain no one would be able to catch him, not even a saint. He is suddenly stopped by Lee Jin, who punches him in the stomach. The man comes collapsing to the floor in pain. Jimin asks what Jin is doing here. Jin says he forgot to tell him to buy some chicken. Sung-hoon, who has been watching the scene quietly, calls Jin impressive. He states Scorpio disciples are hard to catch because they are so fast. He suggests Jin call the police next time. All of a sudden, the ground begins to shake. The thief guesses it's an earthquake, a good chance to escape. However, he is stopped by the sudden appearance of a calamity. He remains frozen in his tracks, unable to believe there is a calamity in the green zone. He tries to retract, confident that even calamities won't be able to catch him. However, people witness as the thief gets gobbled up by the fiery calamity right before their very eyes. The calamity was none other than the Spider Witch. She looks towards the people, her eyes reeking of death. With that, there came an announcement. It warned people this isn't a drill, a calamity has appeared within the mart. It warned these ordinary civilians to quickly evacuate. However, there wasn't enough time as soon as people began to flee the spider that followed them. Just like that, the danger rank within the market was regulated to a red zone. While everyone tried to rush towards safety, a child cried in the middle of it all. But right before he can be killed by the calamity, Jin appears. He crushes the monster down and tells the kid to watch where he is going. But to his surprise, the kid begins to run away, still crying. Jin was at least glad he is safe. He then turns his attention back to the calamity, wondering why there are more calamities in the mart than people. Realizing he has no other choice, Jin decides to do a warm-up session. It has been a while after all. Yang Wei, who was still on his way to Korea, soon learns of the mart scene. His face turns pale as he is told the calamity is Spider Witch. The saints failed to subjugate it last time, so they just barely sealed it. Turns out it has escaped somehow. He knows it would be hard for him to take on a red-level calamity on his own. After calamities began to appear, humanity divided calamities into 6 levels. Blue level is the gods' pure sanctuary, green means safe, and yellow means caution. Orange stands for danger and signs of evacuation, while red is ruled by calamities. As for black, it means human extinction. Yang knows if that spider has appeared, then the market is already a red zone. After much contemplation, he orders his subordinates to tell them to bury it. The subordinate was surprised to answer his question. Yang thinks that nobody must know, as it will become a pain if word spreads about how they have suffered more damage because they failed to subjugate it. With quivering hands, he orders to say that all the people there are dead and sends disciples there to bury the building whole. Meanwhile, at the market, the calamities were not giving up. Sung-hoon tries his best to subjugate the annoying bugs, using his power of glacial prison to freeze them in their spots. But it was not enough. The calamity has broken free from the glacial present. Sung-hoon was bewildered to see that the calamity broke through the ice magic so easily. Soon, Jin takes over, telling the snowflake idiot to move over. He had brought with him many soda cans. He grabs the calamity's attention, questioning if they are trying to eat people because they have nothing else to eat. Jin begins to throw the cans one by one at the bugs. As they were pushed back, he then brought out his weapon, killing them while the others watched in shock. Soon, a system notification appears, revealing that he has handled the calamity and his zodiac experience. As it is in. Along with that, he has acquired new materials for production. Jin wonders what those are. The system reveals he can produce new skills and divine artifacts with these production materials. He decides to try it out later. Considering his 50% physical ability penalty, his movements were not too bad. At this rate, he believes he will be able to become stronger than when he was active. On the other hand, Sung-hoon was still astonished to see his achievements even though they were barely affected by his rank magic. The man took care of the calamity so easily. He watches the man nervously, wondering where did a guy like this come from? He then soon recognizes the individual and points out how he is the one who ambushed their disciples. Jin realizes that and turns awkward. Not knowing what to do, he ends up punching the Germini disciple in the face, telling him to shut up. He wondered, how does he know this much? Sung-hoon cries out, asking how he could not know. He points out that those clothes and that badge were stolen. Plus, he is wearing those clothes. He also reveals that those badges are shrunk divine artifacts given only to the Gemini disciples. He then realizes that the reason the stranger is so unreasonably strong must be because of that gift too. Jin had just realized that the badge was on his shirt, and he calls it disgusting. He then crushes it in his hand while Sung-hoon watches in bewilderment and curses him. Jin pays no heed and says it's a joke in the name of a divine artifact and is purely ornamental. He remarks that 20 years have passed and that he is the same bully as always. They get interrupted as this spider, which is a calamity, roars its way towards them. Jin instantly becomes alert. Jimin trembles as he points out towards the calamity. People screamed as they tried to escape their deaths. Without wasting time, Jin speed rushes towards the calamity, telling it to bug off already. To everyone's shock, the calamity comes towering down. Sang Hyun was shocked to see the insanity he just witnessed. The man charged ahead at the Spider Queen without any divine artifacts. Just then, all the Gemini disciples began to hear an announcement through telepathy. Sung-hoon and Sung-yi recognized the voice to be that of Divine Cadre Captain Sung-hyuk. The captain orders them to exit the building immediately. He reveals that some Aries guys will be burying the building whole. He further reveals how Yang Wei is coming here personally and they do not have any way to stop him. The Spider Queen that appeared there is something that even Yang failed to subjugate. That is why those guys are desperately trying to hide the truth. He says it will be troubling if any dirt about them gets out. The captain points out that Sung-hoon has the teleport skill that was lent to him, and so he suggests that he hurry up and get out with Sung-yi. But this was a pretty difficult decision for Sung-hoon to make. All around him there were injured people. Plus, more calamities were appearing from underground. He then sees Jin fighting in the background. All of it was to overwhelm his body and make his body shake terribly. The captain breaks the awful silence, questioning if there is a problem. He could only answer and return that there is no problem at all. Sung-yi, on the other hand, protests that it wouldn't even be enough if they begged for help. Tries to define the chaos they were in right now, saying that everyone else would be buried alive here. But Sung-hoon tells him to think about it. If they say that the spider appeared in the middle of the city, people will say a lot. The citizens will definitely rebuke the divine cater, their devotion will be shaken, and the divine god's strength will also weaken. Humanity's devotion must be unshakable in order for them to receive protection from the divine gods. Sung-yi was still not convinced. Sung-hoon says that he luckily still has the teleport that he rented left. He says it can teleport 2 people at a time. He says he will take Sung-yi out, especially since it is an order. Sung-yi remains stunned and says he cannot leave his friend behind. Besides, there are still many people who were not able to evacuate. Sung-hoon calls him an idiot for pestering him in a situation like this. He says he has no plans to be buried alive because he hesitated due to incompetent idiots like him. He activates his ice powers but ignores the court and ignores the commands of the divine cadre captain. So we'll have to get rid of those burdens so he will not have to worry about them. Sung-yi becomes furious and also activates his powers, cursing Sung-hoon. Sung-hoon laughs at. He reminds the boy that they are on different levels. However, before the fight could take place, Sung-hoon was brought to the ground as a calamity hit him. Jin had punched it, causing it to be thrown in Sang-hoon's direction. Jin suggests Jimin and Sung-yi get outside quickly because it is dangerous. Sung-yi reveals they cannot leave because the exit is being blocked by calamities. They will either have to use teleport or get rid of all the calamities. Besides that, there are also many injured people, and all these guys are blocking them off. Jin sighs, acknowledging that the situation is a real pain. Just when things couldn't get worse, Sung-woon breaks free from the rubble. He was furious for being trampled. Jin, however, gives him a reality check for how he was planning to throw away the people to escape by himself. Sang-hoon was growing desperate each second and decided to escape all alone. However, right before he called, the spider appeared from behind and trapped him using its cobwebs. He looks behind, knowing that he is doomed now. Before he could do anything, Sung-hoon was engulfed by the spider, which led to his instant death. Jin remains unfazed and tells Sung-yi and Jimin to take care of the injured first so they can leave immediately while he takes care of the calamity, he assures. He assures them that he will be done soon. On the outside, Yang asks about the situation. The subordinate reports that the mud has been blocked off and they have sealed the entire building. Yang complains that it is progressing too slowly for something that started before he arrived. The Ares guys were also feeling a bit confused, as it felt like the seal was not working properly and something was blocking it. The seal is entirely broken in the next few seconds as bright light shines from within the mud. Yang witnesses a snake sovereign exiting the mart. It is soon followed by screaming people, running for their lives. Yang loses color from his face as he hears people telling the guards that some guy killed all these spiders. He wonders who could do it when even he cannot. He decides to check it for himself. And so he quickly makes his way inside the mart. His eyes widened in shock, and he turned nervous seeing that the great spider, which was a calamity, was dead. There is still traces of the battle left, making him certain that something definitely happened here. He scoffs, knowing this is getting bigger and bigger. He soon senses an odd presence nearby and makes his way towards the balcony. It was none other than Hugo Otters. He wonders if he is the culprit behind all this. Thinking of it like that does make sense. However, he was quite wrong. A familiar yet forgotten voice speaks up from behind, asking if his life was more bearable because he was not here. The voice questions if he feels uncomfortable, pointing out that they have not seen each other in a while. It was Jin. Jane smirks, questioning why his expression is so rotten. Yang turns anxious, unable to believe his eyes. Meanwhile, outside the red zone, the injured people were being treated by the coming forces. Jimin and Sung-yi watched the scene unfold quietly. Sung-yi's mind was filled with questions, and he wondered if the man from before was really Lee Jin. Even though he appeared to be different, his movements were the same. He is cut off from his thoughts as Hugo approaches him, questioning why he is here. Jimin was marveling to see the Sagittarius scent. While Sung-yi appeared unsurprised and questioned when he came back to Korea, Hugo appears disappointed and asks if that is the tone he should use when speaking to his father. Jimin laughs at their silly banter. Hugo sighs and points out that he does not appear to be injured badly. He says he should be fine after receiving treatment. He then asks Sung-yi why he was in the mart. He says he heard the calumniator was killed and asks if he saw who did it. But Sung-yi refuses to speak to him, annoying Hugo, who wonders who he takes after. As Jimin mentions Jin, Hugo becomes speechless. He instantly rushes to Jimin and asks where he is. Jimin smiles and asks if Saint Hugo's name is Otiksu. Jimin reveals to a bewildered Hugo that the man is inside the mart right now and is also the one who defeated the Spider Witch. He said his name was Lee Jin. Hugo remains confused as ever, asking the boy to tell him the details. However, there was no time for that, as there was soon an explosion in the corner of the mart. It was caused by the fight that broke out between Jin and Yang. Jin seems to be having fun as he remarks that it has been 20 years since they met and Yang attacked him out of nowhere. On the other hand, Yang was still overwhelmed at the possibility of him being alive. However, he is confused as, despite the resemblance to Lai Jin, the boy does not have any scars on his face, his voice sounds similar but different, and he seems younger. Yang curses him for daring to impersonate Jin. Furious, he tries to charge at him, but Jinian punches him in the abdomen, causing him to fly backward. Jin then rushes to the other side to punch him from there as well. From there, he throws him hard towards the ground. Jin smiled, saying that they really need to be beaten up before they will listen to others. He asks if life was getting any better after getting rid of him in the tower. He points out how they stole his divine artifacts and assets, and he heard that they even forged his will. Jin stares at him with murderous intent, saying he was going to kill all of them anyway. He says he will start by teaching him a lesson, and then he will go after his house, his divine Kador artifacts, and the rest of the saints. He vows to destroy everything. Yang was bewildered, and he did not want that to happen. He could tell that the guy was not bluffing with the way he spoke and acted. Plus, he was not able to see his movements at all just now, making him wonder about the possibility of him being Li Jin. It was impossible. He stood up and said if he is really Jin, then he should try proving it to him. Jin's system reveals that the Ares owner, Divine, got the Jade Emperor to appear. However, he remains unfazed and scoffs that only a part of the Divine God has appeared. With the movement of his fingertips, the area's owner activates chains to trap him. He smiled, saying he does not know how he came back from the tower. He activates his weapon and charges at the guy with all that he has got, telling him to die. Showered with thousands of swords, making Yang certain that he will die. He calls him stupid as ever to fight head-on against him, who has leveled up from the experience points that the disciples have gathered. He laughs, wondering if Jin thinks they were just fooling around for 20 years. However, his face drains of color as bright light starts shining from the sword's tower. Jin emerges, breaking through the tower, punching Yang right in the face. Yang quivers, unable to believe he was able to survive all that. It seems the man is really Li Jin. Li Jin laughs, coldly stating he is really back. Jin instantly grabs his nose to evade a nasty smell. He asks Yang just what happened for even his weapons to smell like garbage. Yang, on the other hand, was amazed and intimidated to see the kind of restoration that the guy had gone through. It was impossible even for Aquarius healers. The system soon reveals that Jin had a near-death experience, and since the conditions have been met, his 13th sense has been unlocked. Jin rejoices and thanks Yang, as it is because of him that he has gotten stronger. He then gets down to business, deciding to try out something. The system suddenly reveals that the divine god of Ares is astonished by Jin and whines at Yang about why he is still alive. The divine god trembles, claiming that it is impossible, and disappears with a flurry of curses. Yang becomes shocked and begins to panic, wondering why our divine goddess is disappearing. Jin was amused to see his miserable state and suggested that it was because he knew it was pointless from the beginning. He tells Yang mockingly that he is quite merciful, so he will only make him feel how much pain he felt. Wow, mercy indeed! Yang soon erupts in waves of screams from the torture. As soon as the subordinates and Hugo made their way inside the building, they were bewildered to see the scene in front of them. There were a lot of calamities that had been destroyed. Hugo senses the energy and realizes it is coming from Yang. He sighs, knowing it is Jin's doing. Even if he has made a mess like this is troublesome. Hugo instantly activates his power, suggesting the Ares guards back off for a second. Hugo instantly makes his way towards Yang. He was surprised to see his state and wonders just what kind of mess Jin is going to make next. The scene shifts to Jin making his way to the Ares residence. It is in order to take back the divine artifact that Yang stole from him. Many people had come to see the various artifacts. He couldn't help but laugh at the guy's obsession with looking rich and flaunting his wealth like this. He could smell his divine artifact in our direction and made his way there. He, however, notices the fakes. The clothes were definitely his that the Yang must have taken from his house, but all the weapons are fake. His eyes gleamed with excitement as he seized the toothpick he used to use, his precious baby. Soon the alarm begins to blare and many bodyguards swarm the place, announcing that there is a thief in the area. Jin, who had broken through the glass frame to get his tooth fixed, stares at the commotion. Thousands of guards had surrounded him, telling him to put his hands up and surrender peacefully after putting down the item. Jin takes one look at them and smiles, saying he does not want to. With one flick of his toothpick, he was able to defeat the guards. With that, he was able to reunite with his divine artifact, Lime. It is an omnificent mud ball, which can shapeshift. He is about to head out when his eyes notice something. He could feel the energy from a divine artifact of Ares strongly nearby. He guesses it would be a bit disappointing if he leaves empty-handed. He decides to have some fun now. Hugo eventually makes his way towards the residence and sees people screaming and running away. He guesses he is too late now. People talk about how there has been an explosion while Hugo internally crying. Hugo finally spots Jin coming out of the residence with a huge sack of things. Hugo rushes towards him crying. Jin smirks, realizing that his friend has not betrayed him after all. However, to his utter shock, Hugo rushes past him towards an unfamiliar man. He then begins to question the man about what he's doing right after coming back and begins to worry about his condition. Jin was beyond pissed off. He slams Hugo, knocking some sense into him, questioning if he cannot remember a guy's face. Hugo recognizes his divine artifact, the slime, making him realize that it is really Jin. If we had delayed the recognition process more, he might have gotten beaten. Hugo instantly embraces Jin, wailing about how he is alive after all these years. However, he is only met back with a punch in his stomach. Jin seethes, questioning what he is doing, hugging him out of nowhere. Despite the pain, Hugo manages to laugh. Just as the endless system reveals that the divine god of Sagittarius, Apollo, has appeared, even Hugo was shocked. Jin also wonders why Apollo is appearing out of nowhere. Apollo descends from the skies towards the two men. Apollo seemed displeased as he looked at Jin. This system soon reveals that he is questioning his survival and requests to check if it really is Li Jin. Hugo questions how he will do that. Apollo, the divine god of Sagittarius, says that something will happen if he shoots Jin with a flaming arrow, and he begins to aim at it, pissing the guy off. Hugo tries his best to stop Apollo. Jin was furious and questioned why this scumbag is aiming at someone the moment he pops up. Hugo was now on double duty and now tries to calm the man down. Jin then tells Hugo that he needs to pay him back now. Upon questioning, he reminds him of his cold, threatening remarks that he will kill him. Enraged, he tells Hugo that when he came out of the tower, his house was sold, his will was forged, and all his divine artifacts were missing. When Hugo tries to explain, Jin stops him and requests that he hit him just once. However, that hit was not offensive to Hugo. Rather, he was relieved that it was really Li Jin. But internally, he did curse the scumbag for hitting him real hard. They're chartered. However, their charter soon gets interrupted by Ares' bodyguards who had spotted the thief. It is then that Jin recalls that he was being chased earlier. When Hugo questions, Jin cheekily remarks that he just stole a few things. Hugo, I was astonished to see that he had looted Yang's vault. The team leader of the Ares guards reveals that the guy is not someone in their caliber, and he will not stand a chance since they called someone who matches his monstrosity. Just then, the household guard of Ares, the beast of riches, Pishu, appears. The system warns Jin that all of his riches and divine artifacts may be taken, but Jin remained unfazed. Hugo suggests the same, to throw away the things that he stole from Yang and run away, but Jin tells him to stay still as he is a man with a plan. He signals Lime, who immediately gets to work. After some seconds, Lime spits out the weapon. Jin grabs it, but he knows using it against a household guard in this state would be tough. However, he tells the weapon to show him its hidden true form. Hugo remains confused and amazed at the power that was radiating from the weapon. That is, until the weapon finally becomes somewhat usable. According to the system, the divine artifact has awakened through the power of Ophiuchus. Due to its trait of being a snake catcher, the sword is given a critical hit attribute. The sword has gotten sharper, and the attack power of the sword increases. Jin's 13th sense skill also activates, allowing him to view the weak spots of the enemies. Jin activates the skill, and he could clearly see the weak spots of the household guard, and so he was ecstatic and decided to wreak havoc with the weapon. Hugo watches Jin proudly. He always managed to defeat all the challenges that were thrown at him, even if it appeared to be reckless. He smiles internally, supporting his friend, but that trust is soon broken as he watches Jin getting crushed by the household guard. Jin emerges from the rubble in fury. He says that the pungent stench of his foot almost killed him. He decides to strike now, and so he aims at the household god's vital area, cutting off its paw. The beast screams in peace and begins to use its abilities, sucking up all the riches in its surroundings. Jin, however, it was having the time of its life and says that the god wouldn't have been beaten up if it had stayed still. He activates the trait of Ophiuchus and hits the beast using his weapon. As soon as he makes contact, a huge explosion takes place, shocking the bystanders. The power was so immense that it shocked Hugo because it was the same as how he had witnessed Jin in his prime. In the end, Jin Heart emerged victorious against the household god with that. Have Zodiac experience points risen? He was also given the option to bring the Beast of Riches into his household. He couldn't believe he would have the ability to control household gods that only the 12 divine gods could. He pats the household god, making it a member of Ophiuchus. After being hugged by its master, the Beast of Riches' size had been decreased. Jin was happy that he could use the Beast of Riches now to store all his treasures. Hugo watches the scene unfold in a state of shock and curiosity. He wonders what could have happened before his return for him to have gained such an ability. Jin soon learns that he has to give a name to the household god. Without much wonderment and thinking, he names it Piggy Bank. Hearing this, Hugo shakes his head in disapproval.